First contact and tensions rise. The vast expanse of space had always beckoned humanity, a siren call that whispered of mysteries yet unsolved and frontiers unexplored. It was in the year 2157 that humanity finally answered that call in earnest, venturing beyond the solar system with the development of faster-than-light travel. The United Earth Space Force, a coalition of the planet's most advanced nations, led the charge into the cosmos. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Horizon, Earth's most advanced exploratory vessel. Her dark eyes scanned the holographic displays surrounding her, each one offering a different view of the alien star system they had just entered. It was their fifth such system since leaving Earth, and so far, they had found nothing but barren rocks and gas giants. "Captain, I'm picking up an anomalous reading," Lieutenant Ramirez called out from his station. It's artificial. Definitely not natural." Sarah's heart raced. This could be it. The moment humanity had been waiting for since they first looked up at the stars. "Can you pinpoint the source?" Ramirez's fingers flew over his console. "Yes, ma'am. It's coming from the fourth planet. Putting it on screen now." The main view screen flickered to life, showing a rust-colored planet not unlike Mars. But there, nestled in a vast canyon, was an unmistakable structure, a sprawling complex of geometric shapes that could only be the work of intelligence. "My God," Sarah whispered, "we're not alone." The next few hours were a flurry of activity as the crew prepared for first contact. Sarah had drilled her team relentlessly for this moment, but now that it was here, she felt woefully unprepared. How do you introduce yourself to an alien species? What if they're hostile? What if they're so different from us that communication is impossible? As they entered orbit around the planet, Sarah addressed her crew. "Remember your training. We're here as peaceful explorers. Our mission is to make contact and establish friendly relations. But stay alert. We don't know what we're dealing with." The landing party, led by Sarah herself, touched down near the alien structure in a shuttle. As they stepped out onto the rust-colored soil, Sarah couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. They were the first humans to set foot on an alien world with clear signs of intelligent life. It didn't take long for the aliens to reveal themselves. They emerged from the structure, tall beings with iridescent skin and multiple limbs. Their faces, if you could call them that, were a cluster of sensory organs arranged in no discernible pattern. Sarah stepped forward, her universal translator at the ready. "We come in peace," she said, the words echoing across the alien landscape. The response came not in words, but in a series of melodic tones that the translator struggled to interpret. After a moment, it produced a rough translation. "Why have you come to our world, strangers from beyond?" Over the next few days, Sarah and her team worked tirelessly to establish communication with the aliens, who called themselves the Zarkol. They learned that the Zarkol were a peaceful race, devoted to scientific pursuits and the arts. They had long suspected the existence of other intelligent life, but had never ventured beyond their own star system. As the humans shared their own history and culture, Sarah noticed a change in the Zarkol's demeanor. Where once there had been curiosity and warmth, now there was caution and even fear. It was Dr. Elias Cohen, the team's xenobiologist, who finally figured out why. "Captain," he said one evening as they reviewed the day's interactions, "I think we're scaring them." "Scaring them? How?" Sarah asked, perplexed. "Our history," Elias explained. "The wars, the conflicts, the speed at which we've advanced our technology. To a peaceful race like the Zarkol, we must seem terrifying." Sarah frowned. She had hoped that humanity's more recent history of unity and peaceful exploration would overshadow its violent past, but it seemed that the scars of those conflicts still defined them in the eyes of the Zarkol. As if to confirm her fears, the next day brought a message from the Zarkol leadership. "We have consulted among ourselves," the translator rendered their melodic speech, "and we have decided that further contact with your species poses too great a risk to our people. We ask that you leave our system and do not return." Sarah was stunned. This wasn't how first contact was supposed to go. They were supposed to forge alliances, exchange knowledge, learn from each other. Instead, humanity's very nature had driven away their first alien friends. As they prepared to leave the Zarkol system, Sarah couldn't shake a sense of foreboding. If peaceful aliens like the Zarkol feared them, how would more aggressive species react to humanity's presence in the galaxy? Her fears were realized sooner than she could have imagined. As the UES Horizon approached the edge of the system, their long-range sensors picked up multiple objects moving at incredible speed, directly towards them. "Captain," Lieutenant Ramirez called out, his voice tight with tension. "We're picking up a transmission from the incoming vessels. It's a declaration of war." Sarah's blood ran cold. The message was clear. The Zarkol's fear of humanity had spread, and now a more militant race had decided to eliminate the threat before it could spread further. As klaxons blared and the crew rushed to battle stations, Sarah realized that humanity's greatest challenge wasn't going to be exploring the stars or making friends with alien races. It was going to be surviving in a galaxy that saw them as a threat to be eliminated. The UES Horizon turned to face the oncoming alien fleet, humanity's first line of defense against a hostile universe. As Sarah gave the order to power up weapons, she couldn't help but think that perhaps the Zarkol had been right to fear them. Because now, with the survival of their species on the line, humanity was about to show the galaxy just how terrifying they could be. The alien invasion begins. The UES Horizon shuddered as another volley of energy weapons impacted its shields. Captain Sarah Chen gripped her command chair, her knuckles white with tension. The alien fleet had appeared out of nowhere, their ships sleek and deadly, moving with a grace that belied their destructive power. "Shields at 42%, Captain," Lieutenant Ramirez called out, his voice barely audible over the wail of alarms. "We can't take much more of this." Sarah's mind raced. They were outnumbered and outgunned, facing an enemy they knew nothing about. But she'd be damned if she'd let humanity's first interstellar conflict end in defeat. "Tactical, target their lead ship. All power to forward guns. Communications, send out a distress call to Earth. Let them know we're under attack." And she hesitated, the weight of her next words heavy on her shoulders. "That the war has begun." The Horizon's main guns roared to life, lancing out with beams of coherent light that sliced through the void. The alien flagship's shields flared brilliant blue, then collapsed under the assault. Secondary explosions rippled across its hull as atmosphere vented into space. For a moment, Sarah allowed herself to hope, but then the rest of the alien fleet opened fire, and the Horizon's shields failed in a cascade of sparks and error messages. "Helm, get us out of here," Sarah ordered. "Maximum FTL, plot a course for Earth. We need to warn them." As the Horizon's engines spooled up for the jump to FTL, Sarah watched the alien ships on the viewscreen. They weren't pursuing. Instead, they were moving towards the Zarkol homeworld. With a sinking feeling in her gut, Sarah realized the aliens weren't just after humanity. They were cleansing the sector of any race that had contact with humans. The ship jumped, the stars stretching into lines as they entered FTL. Sarah knew they had mere hours before they reached Earth, hours to prepare humanity for its greatest challenge yet. Back on Earth, the mood was one of cautious optimism. The successful first contact with the Zarkol, despite its abrupt end, had energized the public. Talks of further space exploration and the possibility of joining a galactic community filled the airwaves. Admiral Viktor Petrov stood in the United Earth Defense Command Center, surrounded by holographic displays showing the status of Earth's defenses and the positions of their exploratory fleets. At 62, Petrov was a veteran of Earth's last great war, his craggy face a testament to the battles he'd seen. He'd hoped never to see war again, but he'd made sure humanity would be ready if it came. An aide rushed into the room, face pale. "Admiral, we've just received a Priority 1 transmission from the Horizon. They're under attack by an unknown alien force. They say it's war, sir." Petrov's face hardened. He'd prepared for this possibility, but he'd hoped it would never come. Sound the alarm. I want every ship we have ready for combat in the next hour, and get me the president. As klaxons began to wail across every military installation on Earth and its colonies, Petrov turned to his staff. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a drill. Humanity is at war. The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity. As the Horizon raced back to Earth, its subspace transmissions provided crucial data on the alien threat. Earth's scientists and military strategists worked feverishly to analyze the information, looking for any weakness they could exploit. President Amelia Rodriguez addressed the world, her usually calm demeanor showing cracks of worry. My fellow citizens of Earth, today we face a threat unlike any in our history. An alien force has attacked our exploratory vessel and is even now moving against us. But we will not falter. We will not fall. Humanity has faced extinction before, from our own folly, and we have always emerged stronger. Now, we must stand united against this external threat. As she spoke, the first waves of alien ships appeared at the edge of the solar system. Earth's long-range sensors picked them up, a swarm of hostile contacts that made even the most hardened military officials pale. Admiral Petrov watched the holographic display, his mind already formulating strategies. They'll hit the outer colonies first, he muttered. Mars, the Jovian moons, the mining outposts in the Kuiper Belt. We need to evacuate as many as we can. But even as he gave the order, he knew it was already too late for many. Reports started flooding in of attacks on the outermost human settlements. The aliens were ruthlessly efficient, their weapons capable of cracking open habitation domes and vaporizing entire outposts in seconds. On Mars, Colonial Governor Aisha Okafor watched in horror as the alien ships descended on New Damascus, the largest city on the Red Planet. The colonial defense forces, little more than a militia with some outdated military hardware, stood no chance. In less than an hour, a settlement of over 1 million people was reduced to smoking ruins. ISA managed to get out a final transmission before the aliens jammed all communications. They're not just killing us, she reported, her voice shaking. They're taking people, abducting them. I don't know why, but... Her transmission cut off abruptly. Back on Earth, the Horizon finally arrived, battered but intact. Captain Sarah Chen was immediately whisked to UEDC headquarters to brief Admiral Petrov and the Joint Chiefs. They call themselves the Krelax, Sarah reported, her uniform still smelling of smoke and ozone. From what we've been able to gather, they're a warrior race that sees themselves as the guardians of the galaxy. They believe that humanity's warlike past makes us too dangerous to be allowed to spread among the stars. Admiral Petrov nodded grimly. So they've appointed themselves our executioners. But why take prisoners? Sarah's face darkened. We're not sure, sir. But given their technological superiority, I doubt it's for any reason we'd consider humane. As they spoke, the main view screen lit up with urgent reports. The alien fleet had breached the inner solar system. Earth's orbital defense platforms opened fire, filling space with a web of laser fire and missiles. But for every alien ship they managed to destroy, 3 more took its place. My God, someone whispered as they watched the carnage unfold. There's so many of them. Admiral Petrov's voice cut through the growing panic in the room. We knew this day might come. We've prepared for it. Humanity has faced extinction before, and we've always survived. We'll survive this too. But as he watched the alien armada approach, even Petrov couldn't quite believe his own words. The Krelax vastly outnumbered and outgunned Earth's forces. Their technology was decades, perhaps centuries ahead of humanity's. Yet, as the first alien ships began to enter Earth's atmosphere, as reports of devastation began to pour in from every continent, something remarkable happened. Humanity, faced with the greatest threat in its history, didn't break. It didn't surrender. Instead, all across the planet, people began to fight back. Not just soldiers, but civilians. Farmers with shotguns took potshots at alien dropships. Hackers launched cyberattacks against alien systems. Scientists worked around the clock to understand and counter alien technology. The war had begun, and humanity was terrified, but they were also angry. And as the Krelax were about to learn, an angry humanity was a force to be reckoned with. As night fell on the first day of the invasion, Earth burned, but its people stood defiant, ready to fight for their very existence. The real battle was just beginning. Humanity's initial struggles. The sky over New York City blazed with an otherworldly light as Krelax ships descended through the atmosphere. Lieutenant Commander Jack Harper stood atop the ruins of what had once been the Empire State Building, his powered armor scorched and dented from days of continuous fighting. He raised his pulse rifle, sighting down its length at an approaching alien dropship. "Echo Squad on my mark," he growled into his comm. The acknowledgement lights of his team blinked green in his HUD. As the dropship lowered, its gravitic engines whining, Jack gave the order, "Mark." A dozen high-powered energy bolts lanced out from various hiding spots, converging on the dropship. Its shields flared and failed, and the craft crashed into the street below in a satisfying fireball. But Jack knew the victory was fleeting. For every ship they brought down, 3 more seemed to take its place. "Good work, people," he said. "Now fall back to extraction point Delta. We've stirred up the hornet's nest." As if to prove his point, the air filled with the scream of Krelax fighters. Jack's team scattered, using the broken cityscape as cover. This was urban warfare like humanity had never seen before, fought with weapons that could level city blocks in seconds. Across the globe, similar scenes played out. In the rice paddies of Southeast Asia, farmers turned guerrillas used ancient tunnel networks to ambush Krelax patrols. In the Amazon rainforest, indigenous tribes armed with poisoned darts brought down alien scouts, their ancestral knowledge of the jungle proving invaluable. But for every victory, there were a dozen defeats. The Krelax's technological superiority was overwhelming. Their energy weapons could punch through the strongest human armor like it was tissue paper. Their ships could stay aloft indefinitely, raining death from above with impunity. In orbit, the situation was even more dire. Admiral Petrov stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, Earth's most advanced battleship. But even this marvel of human engineering was little more than a gnat to the massive Krelax dreadnoughts. "Status report," Petrov barked, his eyes never leaving the tactical display. His XO, Commander Ling, responded with grim efficiency. "Shields at 15%, multiple hull breaches on decks 3 through 7. Weapon systems operating at 40% capacity. Sir, we can't take much more of this." Petrov nodded, his face a mask of determination. "Plot a collision course with the nearest enemy dreadnought. If we're going down, we're taking one of them with us." But before Ling could acknowledge the order, a new alert blared across the bridge. "Sir," the sensor officer called out, "we're detecting a massive energy spike from the lunar surface." All eyes turned to the view screen just in time to see a blinding beam of light erupt from the dark side of the moon. It lanced across space, catching a Krelax dreadnought squarely amidships. The massive alien vessel simply ceased to exist, vaporized in an instant. For a moment, there was stunned silence on the bridge. Then Petrov's comm crackled to life. "This is Dr. Elara Vance from Lunar Base Alpha," a breathless voice announced. "We've just successfully tested Project Prometheus. How copy, over?" A fierce grin spread across Petrov's weathered face. "We copy, Doctor. And may I say, your timing is impeccable." Project Prometheus had been a closely guarded secret, a last-ditch superweapon developed in the hidden labs of Earth's moon. Its successful deployment marked a turning point in the space battle, giving humanity its first real advantage against the Krelax fleet. But on the ground, the struggle continued. In what remained of London, Captain Sarah Chen led a mixed unit of British SAS and civilian volunteers on a desperate mission. Intelligence had identified a Krelax command post in the heart of the city, and taking it out could disrupt alien operations across Western Europe. Sarah crouched behind the burnt-out hulk of a double-decker bus, her team spread out around her. The aliens had set up their command post in Buckingham Palace of all places, a final insult to human culture. "Remember," Sarah whispered into her comm, "we go in fast and quiet. Plant the charges and get out. We can't match them in a stand-up fight." The team moved like ghosts through the ruined streets, using stealth tech reverse-engineered from captured Krelax equipment. They slipped past alien patrols and automated defenses, making their way into the once grand palace. But as they reached the central chamber, they found something they hadn't expected. Dozens of stasis pods lined the walls, each containing a human captive, and at the center of the room stood a Krelax officer, its iridescent scales gleaming in the low light. The alien turned, its multifaceted eyes focusing on Sarah. To her shock, it spoke in perfect, albeit oddly accented, English. "Ah, the warriors of Earth. We've been expecting you." Turning the tide, the streets of Cairo echoed with the sound of battle. Dr. Amina Nasser, once a brilliant physicist at the University of Cairo, now led a ragtag group of resistance fighters through the ancient city. Her knowledge of science had been repurposed for war, her lab coat exchanged for makeshift armor. "The signal's getting stronger," she called out, her eyes fixed on a cobbled-together device that looked like a cross between a smartphone and a 1980s radio. "The Krelax comm hub should be just ahead." Beside her, Major Tom Richards of the British SAS nodded grimly. "Right then. Remember the plan. We get in, plant the virus, and get out. No heroics." The team moved forward cautiously, using the ruins of once grand buildings as cover. The Krelax had set up their communication hub in the shadow of the Great Pyramid of Giza, a final insult to human history and achievement. As they approached, a Krelax patrol rounded the corner. For a moment, both groups froze in surprise. Then, chaos erupted. Energy weapons flared, illuminating the night sky. Major Richards dove for cover, returning fire with his pulse rifle. "Amina, go," he shouted over the din of battle. "We'll hold them off. Plant the virus." Amina hesitated for a split second, then nodded. She sprinted towards the alien structure, her heart pounding in her ears. This was their chance, perhaps their only chance, to strike a real blow against the invaders. Inside the comm hub, Amina found herself surrounded by alien technology. Holographic displays flickered with information she couldn't begin to comprehend. But she didn't need to understand it. She just needed to upload the virus. With shaking hands, she connected her device to what looked like an input terminal. Lines of code scrolled across her screen as the virus began its work. Outside, the sounds of battle intensified. Come on," Amina muttered, watching the progress bar inch forward. Suddenly, alarms began to blare throughout the structure. She'd been detected. Just as the upload completed, a Krelax warrior burst into the room. Amina dove to the side, narrowly avoiding a blast of energy that scorched the wall behind her. She scrambled for her weapon, knowing she stood little chance against the alien's superior technology and physiology. But before the Krelax could fire again, it stumbled, its multifaceted eyes blinking in confusion. The holographic displays around them flickered and died. Amina allowed herself a grim smile. The virus was working. She didn't wait to see what happened next. Amina ran, sprinting past the disoriented alien and out into the night. Behind her, the Krelax comm hub erupted in a cascade of malfunctions and power surges. As Amina reunited with her team, similar scenes were playing out across the globe. From Tokyo to Toronto, Rio to Rome, resistance teams struck at Krelax communication centers. The alien invaders, so reliant on their advanced technology, suddenly found themselves cut off and confused. In orbit, Admiral Petrov watched with growing excitement as Krelax ships began to move erratically, their coordinated attack patterns dissolving into chaos. "Now's our chance," he growled. "All ships, press the attack. Drive them back." Earth's remaining fleet, bolstered by the lunar superweapon project Prometheus, surged forward. Krelak's ships, their communications disrupted and their chain of command in disarray, fell one by one to the human counterattack. But the true turning point came from an unexpected source. As the space battle raged, a new fleet appeared at the edge of the solar system. Sleek, organic-looking ships that were neither human nor Krelak's. "Sir," Petrov's communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the unknown fleet. They're identifying themselves as the Zarkol." Petrov's eyes widened in surprise. The peaceful aliens who had fled from humanity's warlike history had returned, and not a moment too soon. The Zarkol ships moved with graceful precision, their advanced technology easily a match for the Krelak's. They deployed strange, shimmering fields that seemed to simply erase Krelak's weapons fire from existence. Their own weapons struck with surgical precision, disabling rather than destroying enemy ships. On the bridge of the Zarkol flagship, Ambassador Zilar watched the battle unfold. "We should have done this from the beginning," he said softly. "We allowed our fear to blind us to the truth of humanity's nature. They are warriors, yes, but they fight for peace, for their right to exist. We were wrong to abandon them." Back on Earth, the sudden shift in the space battle had an immediate impact on the ground war. Krelak's ground forces, cut off from orbital support and reinforcement, began to falter. In the ruins of London, Captain Sarah Chen led a charge against a Krelak stronghold. With their communication systems down, the aliens couldn't coordinate their defense. Sarah's team, a mix of professional soldiers and civilian volunteers, fought with a ferocity born of months of hardship and loss. As they breached the alien defenses, Sarah found herself face to face with a Krelak's commander. The alien regarded her with what might have been respect. "You fight well," it said in its oddly accented English. "Perhaps we underestimated your kind." Sarah raised her weapon. "You did more than that. You threatened our existence. And you learned the hard way that humanity doesn't go down without a fight." The Krelak's inclined its head in what might have been a nod. "So it seems. But know this, human. This defeat is but a setback. The Krelak's empire spans galaxies. We will return. And we'll be ready," Sarah replied firmly. Across the globe, similar scenes played out. In New York, Jack Harper and his team reclaimed the island of Manhattan, driving the last Krelak's forces into the sea. In Moscow, Russian troops raised their flag over the Kremlin for the first time in months. In Beijing, millions of Chinese citizens emerged from hidden bunkers to reclaim their city. The war was far from over. The Krelak's still held significant territory, and their threat of return hung over humanity like a shadow. But for the first time since the invasion began, victory seemed possible. As news of the successful counterattack spread, cheers erupted in resistance hideouts and military bases around the world. Humanity had been pushed to the brink of extinction, and they had pushed back. They had faced their darkest hour and emerged, battered but unbroken. In the aftermath of the battle, as human and Zarkol ships began the process of mopping up the remaining Krelak's forces, Admiral Petrov allowed himself a moment of reflection. The cost had been horrific. Billions dead, great cities reduced to rubble, the scars of war etched across the face of the earth. But they had survived. More than that, they had proven to the galaxy that humanity was a force to be reckoned with. The Krelak's had come to subjugate them, to turn them into obedient servants of their empire. Instead, they had awakened a sleeping giant. As the first rays of dawn broke over a liberated Earth, Petrov made a silent vow. They would rebuild, they would recover. And when the Krelak's returned, for he had no doubt they would, humanity would be ready. The tide had turned. The war for Earth was not over, but its outcome was no longer in doubt. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge and emerged victorious, and in doing so, they had taken their first steps onto a much larger, more dangerous galactic stage. The final push. The war room deep beneath the Rocky Mountains buzzed with activity. Holographic displays showed the state of the conflict across Earth and the solar system. Admiral Petrov stood at the center, his weathered face illuminated by the blue glow of the tactical maps. "The Kryaks have consolidated their remaining forces here," he said, pointing to a region in the South Pacific. "Intelligence suggests this is their last major stronghold on Earth." President Rodriguez, her face lined with the stress of months of war, nodded grimly. "And in space, the combined human and Zarkal fleets have pushed them back to Mars," Admiral Petrov replied. "We believe they're trying to establish a fallback position there." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. This was it, the final push. If they could break the Kryaks here, Earth would be free. "What's the plan?" asked General Zhang of the Chinese People's Liberation Army. Admiral Petrov's eyes gleamed with determination. "We hit them everywhere at once. A coordinated assault on their Pacific stronghold, coupled with a push to retake Mars. We leave them nowhere to run, nowhere to hide." As the military leaders hammered out the details of the assault, similar preparations were underway across the globe. In hidden bases and makeshift factories, humans worked tirelessly to ready themselves for the final battle. In Sydney, now a fortified resistance stronghold, Dr. Amina Nasser put the finishing touches on a new weapon. Based on reverse-engineered Kryaks technology, it promised to penetrate even the strongest alien shields. "It's ready," she announced to the team of engineers and soldiers gathered around her. "Let's hope it works as well in the field as it does in the lab." Half a world away, in the ruins of Rio de Janeiro, Captain Sarah Chen briefed her strike team. They would be part of the first wave to hit the Kryaks stronghold in the Pacific. "This is it, people," she said, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "Everything we've fought for comes down to this. We win here, we win Earth." As dawn broke over the Pacific, the largest assembled human fleet since the start of the war moved into position. Ships of all sizes, from small, nimble fighters to massive carriers, filled the sky. And among them, the organic shapes of Zarkal vessels, their alien allies standing with them in this final battle. On the bridge of the flagship, Admiral Petrov gave the order. "All units, commence attack." The sky lit up with weapons fire as the fleet engaged the Kryaks defenses. On the islands below, dropships landed, disgorging waves of human troops. Sarah Chen and her team were among the first to hit the beach, fighting their way through fierce Kryaks resistance. "Push forward," Sarah yelled over the din of battle. "We've got them on the run." Indeed, the Kryaks seemed caught off guard by the ferocity of the human assault. Months of guerrilla warfare had honed humanity's fighting skills, and now, with the advantage of numbers and their new weapons, they were a force to be reckoned with. In orbit around Mars, a similar battle raged. Jack Harper, now commanding a squadron of fighters, led the charge against the Kryaks' orbital defenses. "Watch your six, Echo 3, he called out, his fighter rowing to avoid enemy fire. "These bastards still have some fight left in them." But even as he spoke, a massive Zarkal ship moved into position. It fired a weapon unlike anything Jack had ever seen, a beam of pure energy that seemed to distort space itself. The Kryaks ships caught in its path simply ceased to exist. "Holy shit," Jack breathed. Then, shaking off his oar, he barked into his comm. "All units, press the attack. Don't let up." Back on Earth, the battle for the Kryaks stronghold had turned into a brutal slugfest. Sarah and her team fought their way through alien defenses, using every trick and tactic they'd learned over months of war. As they neared the central command structure, Sarah's comm crackled to life. "Captain Chen, this is Dr. Nasser. We're in position with the new weapon. Ready on your mark." Sarah took a deep breath. This was it, their best chance to end this once and for all. "Do it," she ordered. A moment later, the air seemed to ripple as Dr. Nasser's weapon activated. The Krelax shields, which had withstood conventional attacks, flickered and died. "All units, push forward," Sarah yelled. "Their defenses are down." The human forces surged forward, overwhelming the now vulnerable Krelax positions. Sarah and her team fought their way into the heart of the alien command center. There, they found the Krelax Supreme Commander, a massive creature that dwarfed its subordinates. It turned its multifaceted eyes on Sarah, its alien features unreadable. "So," it said, its voice a low rumble, "this is how it ends." Sarah raised her weapon. "Surrender," she demanded. "It's over." For a long moment, the alien commander was silent. Then, to Sarah's surprise, it inclined its head in what she recognized as a nod. "You have earned this victory," it said. "The Krelax Empire acknowledges your strength. We withdraw." As word of the Krelax surrender spread, cheers erupted across the battlefield. In orbit around Mars, the remaining alien ships began to retreat, jumping to faster-than-light speed and disappearing into the depths of space. Admiral Petrov watched from the bridge of his ship, a mix of emotions playing across his face. They had won. Earth was free. But the cost had been almost beyond measure. As the sun set on the day of victory, humans across the globe emerged from hiding, from bunkers and caves and ruined cities. They looked up at the sky, no longer filled with alien ships, and allowed themselves to hope. The war was over. Earth had faced its greatest challenge and emerged victorious. But as Admiral Petrov and the other leaders knew, this was not the end. It was merely the beginning. The galaxy now knew of humanity's existence, of their strength and their determination. And out there, somewhere in the vastness of space, the Krelax Empire was licking its wounds, undoubtedly planning its return. But for now, for this moment, humanity could breathe. They could mourn their dead, begin to rebuild, and prepare for whatever the future might hold. As night fell on a free Earth, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter. Humanity had taken its place among them, for better or for worse. The age of Earth's isolation was over. The age of galactic citizenship had begun. Aftermath and reflection. 5 years had passed since the Krelax surrender. Earth, once ravaged by war, was showing signs of recovery. Green shoots pushed through the rubble of fallen cities, and the sounds of construction filled the air where once there had been only the thunder of weapons. Sarah Chen, now General Chen, stood atop the newly rebuilt United Nations headquarters in New York. The skyline was different now, a mix of familiar structures and alien-inspired architecture, a visual reminder of humanity's new place in the galactic community. "Quite a view, isn't it?" a voice said behind her. Sarah turned to see Admiral Petrov, his hair now completely white, but his eyes as sharp as ever. "It is," Sarah agreed. "Sometimes I can hardly believe how far we've come." Indeed, the changes went far beyond mere reconstruction. The influx of alien technology, both captured from the Krelax and freely shared by the Zarkol, had revolutionized human society. Clean energy was now abundant, diseases that once plagued humanity were all but eradicated, and the first human colonies beyond the solar system were already being established. But perhaps the most significant change was in humanity's mindset. The war had united Earth in a way nothing else could have. Old rivalries and conflicts seemed petty in the face of what they had endured together. "The Zarkol delegation will be arriving soon," Petrov reminded her. "Are you ready for the ceremony?" Sarah nodded. Today marked the 5th anniversary of the end of the war and Earth's formal admission into the Galactic Council. It was a day of celebration, but also one of solemn remembrance. As they made their way to the Grand Assembly Hall, Sarah's mind wandered to her old comrades. Jack Harper was now leading Earth's first extrasolar colony. Dr. Amina Nasser had become the head of the new Galactic Science Institute, working alongside Zarkol scientists to push the boundaries of knowledge. The assembly hall was packed with dignitaries from every nation on Earth, as well as representatives from a dozen alien races. At the center stood the Zarkol ambassador, Zilar, his iridescent scales shimmering under the lights. President Rodriguez took the podium, her voice echoing through the hall. 5 years ago, we faced annihilation. We were alone, outgunned, fighting an enemy we barely understood. But we did not break. We did not yield. Together, we showed the galaxy the indomitable spirit of humanity. She paused, her eyes scanning the crowd. Today, we take our place among the stars not as conquerors, not as victims, but as equals. We have learned much from this crucible of war, about ourselves, about our new allies, and about the vastness of the universe we inhabit. As the president spoke, Sarah couldn't help but reflect on the cost of this new era. Billions had died. Great cities had been reduced to ash. The scars of war, both physical and psychological, would take generations to fully heal. But there was hope too. The Zarkol had become true friends to humanity, helping them rebuild and adapt to their new reality. Other alien races, hearing of Earth's victory over the dreaded Krelax, had reached out in friendship and trade. And yet, President Rodriguez continued, her tone growing serious, we must not forget the lessons of the past. The galaxy is vast and often dangerous. The Krelax are still out there, and there may be other threats we have yet to encounter. Sarah nodded to herself. Earth's military had not been neglected in the reconstruction. New ships were being built, combining the best of human ingenuity with advanced alien technology. They were determined never to be caught unprepared again. As the ceremony concluded and Earth was formally welcomed into the Galactic Council, Sarah found herself standing next to Ambassador Zilar. Your people have come so far in such a short time, Zilar observed, his melodious voice filled with what Sarah had learned to recognize as admiration. We were wrong to fear you. Your capacity for violence is matched only by your capacity for growth and adaptation. Sarah smiled. We've had good teachers, she replied, and we've learned that strength doesn't always mean fighting. Sometimes it means knowing when to extend a hand in friendship. As they looked out over the assembly, at humans and aliens mingling freely, Sarah felt a sense of pride and hope. The war had been horrific, but it had forged humanity into something stronger, something ready to face the challenges of a vast and complex galaxy. The future was uncertain. The Krelax was still out there, rebuilding their forces. Other, unknown threats might be lurking in the dark spaces between the stars, but humanity was ready. They had faced their trial by fire and emerged stronger for it. As the sun set on this historic day, casting a golden glow over the recovered Earth, Sarah Chen allowed herself a moment of quiet satisfaction. They had not only survived, they had thrived, and whatever the galaxy might throw at them next, she knew that humanity would face it together, with the same spirit that had seen them through their darkest hour. The stars no longer seemed distant and unreachable. They were a challenge and invitation, a new frontier to explore. Humanity had taken its first steps into a larger world, and they were ready for whatever adventures or dangers might lie ahead. The war was over. The next chapter of human history was just beginning, and it promised to be the most exciting one yet.